Welcome to my helpful guide to beginners' grayscale settings. I'll be covering a majority of ClipStudio's monochrome options with detailed descriptions and walking you through everything. This is for ClipStudio's monthly tutorial contest, so I have my article with all this great content linked in the description below. Be sure to give it a like and comment if you like it. Now, without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Canvas setup. To set up a canvas to be grayscale, simply make a new canvas by going to File, New, Color drop-down box, Gray. This will automatically default all new layers made in the canvas to values of white, gray, and black, meaning you cannot use color unless manually enabling color in individual layers. Through this same method, you can also enable a monochrome canvas in which only black and white is usable. If you forgot to enable the gray canvas setting in the beginning, you can still add it in later. To do so, go to Edit, Canvas Properties, Color drop-down box, Gray. If you had been using a color prior to this step, all prior layers will still be set to color, while all new layers will default to gray values. To set individual layers to grayscale or black and white, go to your right side panel, Layer Property, click the layer you would like to change, and under Expression Color, select Gray or Monotone. This is useful if you wish to add pops of color to a gray image to create a selected saturation palette, commonly used to draw focus to an object in a scene and add narrative. Blending modes. To access blending modes, select the Blending Mode drop-down box from your Layers panel. Blending modes can at times behave differently with black and white than they do with color. To showcase the various effects, I've comprised a side-by-side comparison of all ClipStudio blending modes available in the article in the description below, and how they appear, with a layer of 50% gray value atop a regular grayscale photo layer. It's also important to note that some blending modes do not function unless the value used is greater or less than 50% gray. Extract line and LT conversion. The extract line layer setting automatically converts your image to black and white as a cutout of the original. It does what its name entails, presents only the outlines of your object. This is very handy for creating object cutouts from photographs for use in manga and comics. Its process will render the image to look as if it were a drawing, rather than originally a photograph, and thus is a great time-saver trick for background material in your artwork. To easily access the Extract Line layer setting, go to Layer Properties, Extract Line. Then, adjust the individual settings as desired to achieve the best look for your image. Threshold Fill in Black affects the amount of black present in your object's cutout. A higher threshold may be useful for creating stronger contrast and an inked appearance. Correction Line Width adjusts the width of the texture in your cutout. A higher correction line width setting may increase the amount of visible grain, darkening the image. Threshold of Edge alters the thickness of the cutout lines. A higher value in this setting can result in less visible grain within photo cutouts, though too high of a threshold may erase too much of the linework's outline. Direction of Detection changes which directions the cutout occurs from. It's possible to manipulate the thickness of a certain cutout lines by fixing specific directions. Extract after posterization. Posterization affects the tones used in the image. With the slider showing different tones, you can correct the value percentages in each to your preferences. LT conversion of layer allows you to separate a selected layer into lines and tones created on separate layers. This is a more extensive and adjustable version of the Extract Line layer property, and especially useful for creating adjustment of visible tones. For more technical information on the LT conversion of layer, I have the link to ClipStudio's manual in my article below. You can access LT conversion of layer by going to Layer, LT conversion of layer, or going to Layer Property, Extract Line, Execution of LT conversion of layer. If using the Extract Line method of access, the LT conversion of layer settings will be dominant over the previously set Extract Line settings. When using LT conversion of layer, more layer options are accessible than when using Extract Line. For example, you are able to add tone to your image's individual posterization values to achieve a more manga or comic styled appearance, add texture, or create simple patterns. These tone additions can be changed later after the establishment of the initial LT conversion of layer by clicking the individual layers that are newly created from the conversion and manually editing their tone effect in the layer property. Cutting out objects. Cutting out objects for manga and comics is easy with ClipStudio's variety of tools. In this segment, we'll be cutting out a car and then using LT conversion of layer on it to make it appear as if it were drawn by hand. While the magic wand, lasso, and selection tool cutouts that ClipStudio offers are great for extracting objects from simple backgrounds, the example of a car that we have here is set against a complex background with odd lighting. This lack of contrast between the background and our object can confuse the magic wand tool and make cutting out what we want versus what we don't want a challenging task. While you could use the lasso or selection pin tool in this scenario to get the job done, the smooth geometric shape of the car can give you a rough time when using straight lines by hand. A solution to these problems is the Figure Curve tool. Make a new layer on top of your photograph of an object. Then, using a thin line width for easy inverse selection later, use the Curve tool to trace the outline of your car. No need to trace the inside lines, only create the silhouette. For the wheels, make new layers, one for each wheel. Use the Ellipse tool found under Figure, Subtool, and hold down Shift while you drag the shape to obtain a perfect circle. Next, click Ctrl+T on keyboard to enable Transform, right-click, and select Free Transform. Make corrections to each wheel outline, circle so that it matches up with the car photo. Once you have your car outline layers, merge the outline layers so that they are all in one layer together in a single liner above your photograph. Grab the Magic Wand selection tool, click anywhere outside of your line art, inverse that selection via Invert Selected Area on the pop-up selection panel. Now you only have the inside of your car selected. Next, toggle to your photograph layer. I advise you to make a duplicate of your photograph layer now, in case you made some error in your line art which may need fixed later by referencing the original photograph. While the inside of the car is selected and you are on your photograph layer, press the Delete key, which will reveal only the car cutout. Turn off the above outline layer so it's no longer visible. Finally, use LT conversion of layer and adjust settings as desired to make your car appear as if it were a drawing. Be sure the Preview checkbox is selected so that you can review the edits you make before pressing OK. Tones. Tones are a great way for adding texture and effects to your creation. While commonly seen in manga and comics as a form of grayscale coloring, they can be applied to any form of artwork to give it that extra wow factor. ClipStudio has many ways to utilize tones to your advantage, and even has a function for removing tones from single-layered works. There's two ways to access tones in ClipStudio. Method 1 is going to Layer, New Layer, Tone. This way of access will automatically make a new layer of tone cover the entire canvas, unless you have a selection already established on your image, of which case it will then utilize a layer mask to cover only the selection. The method also gives you access to the tone's angle, which is especially useful when using the line tone type. You can adjust the settings even after establishing the initial tone with the Layer Property panel. The second method is by going to Layer Property, Effect, Tone. This allows you to make any pre-existing layer into a tone. You can adjust the individual layer's tone settings as desired to obtain the perfect balance for your needs. Method 1 of Access gives you access to settings such as gradient, angle, posterization, and reflect layer opacity. Method 2 of Access gives you access to many of the same settings as Method 1, with the exclusion of the above. And, furthermore, it can turn any pre-existing layer into a tone, which I find really handy for photographs. The frequency setting changes the size of your tone pixels. This can impact how colored in your subject appears. A very large frequency can even make it appear as if there is no tone in use at all. The smaller the frequency, the larger the gap between the tones. The larger the frequency, the smaller the gap between the tones. The tone density has several layer settings, 2 of which are accessible from Method 1 and Method 2 of Tone Creation. These are Use Color of Image and Use Density of Image. Use Color of Image uses the value of your tone layer that you have set in a solid sheet of tone. The background is not visible from behind the tone without separately adjusting its opacity. Use Density of Image uses the values of the layer below your tone to impact your tone's brightness and darkness. The background becomes visible from behind the tone, even without opacity adjustment. The percentage of gray that you use affects the tone's brightness or darkness. The brighter the shade, the farther the tone particles will be from each other, and thus the brighter the tone will appear. ClipStudio offers 24 different shapes to use for your tone, giving a wide variety of diversity for use in all projects. To obtain a specific gray value shown, ClipStudio has further simplified the process and provided you with preset, labeled values of gray available under Color Set, Default Color Set. It's important to note that if you don't set your canvas to gray basic color expression and instead have it to color mode, tone values behave differently between colors than they do between gray values. In these examples, despite using the same tint or same shade for each different color, the tone itself alters in brightness and darkness depending on the individual color. For example, the red is darker than purple. This can get very confusing, so it's recommended you use grayscale values for tones so that they stay consistent. Tones behave differently depending on what blending mode and density setting you use. You can utilize this to achieve fun effects for your scene. As mentioned earlier, however, some blending modes require a value of gray above or below 50% in order to take effect. I've created a side-by-side comparison of each blending mode and how it appears on a solid 50% gray tone to expose the underlying background image. You can see that side-by-side comparison in the article linked below. ClipStudio also allows you to remove tone from a single layered image. This is useful for traditional scanned-in manga or comic pages, of which you wish to strip them of their tones to expose only the line art. It's also helpful for cases in which you merge your layers without meaning to, and want to edit the image later on to fix any mistakes. To remove tone from a single layer, go to Edit, Remove Tones, Delete Tones from Selected Layer. The Layer, New Layer, Tone method of access provides you with additional options for creating a gradient, viewable under Select, Tool, Property, Fill Settings, Gradient. To do so, first make a new tone layer, then establish a gradient by swapping the Fill setting to Gradient Mode. Move the newly formed blue gradient line tool to adjust the direction. Alter the gradient's values by selecting the Specify Color of Gradient setting and applying your preference. You can even change the shape of your gradient and choose between straight line, circle, or ellipse. To further make your gradient tone stand out, a useful function is applying it in combination with the blending mode. For this example, to make the sky pop, I have used the tone gradient setting along with the overlay blending mode. Drawing a character with tones. Before you begin, It can be helpful to check how your character's color palette will translate into grayscale. A quick and easy method for doing so is to create a new layer above your reference sheet, fill it in with black, and turn the blending mode to color. This step is handy for confirming that the character's values have decent contrast, and no two colors translate into the same shade of gray, such as having the same shade of hair as you do skin, resulting in the character being a singular value of gray and making it difficult for the viewer to differentiate between hair and skin. Next, make a new canvas with basic expression color set to gray. Adjust the default frequency setting for your tones to complement your canvas size. This can be adjusted later, even if you don't get it perfect now. You'll find it useful to have your reference sheet ready in a new tab so that you can drag and drop that separate canvas onto your artwork for easy review and drawing and color picking. If you'd like a more in-depth tutorial on how to draw anthropomorphic animals and heads, please check out my guide Drawing Anthropomorphic Animals, linked in my article below. Step 1. Start with a circle. This will be the rough base for where your head will be placed. Step 2. On a new layer, draw the top of your character's muzzle. It can help to envision it like a three-dimensional rectangle attached to your circle. As a tip, the length of your muzzle will vary depending on what species you're drawing. As Lan, the character I'm drawing, is a variety of dragon, I can take liberty with the snout length as there's no real animal to compare it to. In these instances, the length of a dog's muzzle is what I prefer to reference. Step 3. The bottom of the muzzle is drawn, attaching towards the bottom of the circle. Rather than being a straight line, giving it rounded edges and curve can help make it appear realistic. Step 4. Time to draw the eye! The tear duct / carbuncle typically begins at the inner edge of the snout. If you'll be including eyelashes like I will be, take into account for them now and adjust the vertical proportions of the eye accordingly so that there will be room. Step 5. Loosely following the initial circle you drew in Step 1, form the top and back of the head. If your Step 1 circle got too small, like mine did, you can take some creative freedom and form a new circle for this step as needed and to size. Step 6. Flowing down from the back of the head is the neck. Give it curve and adjust its positioning to suit the character's posture and species. Now that we have the base of our head drawn, we'll be adding additional details. It's helpful to turn your base layer to a layered color now so that the newly added details are easy to see in their initial black sketch. Step 8. Let's work on the hair! Make a new layer. Starting from the base of the head, I work my way outwards and layer the hair strands to give a sense of volume. You can see here that turning your base sketch layer to layer color makes it much easier to add in the hair on top and distinguish between lines, as the character lines are in blue while the hair is in black. Step 9. Finish up your sketch by continuing to add details. This character, Lan, has lots of chest fluff, which greatly covers their neck. You might notice I don't get too detailed with this hair at this point, as that'll be primarily done via line art detailing. Step 10. With the ink brush to form traditional looking inked lines, I begin on the clean line work and a new layer atop my sketch. Turning the sketch on a layered color mode now makes it easier to see my newly created outlines. I have that brush linked in my article below. Step 11. To give the character intensity, I take the time to ink in my main shadows in black using the ink brush in a new layer. This makes them appear more imposing with an aggressive contrast from their otherwise lighter grayscale palette. This step's optional, and depending on your artwork's theme, may be best to either incorporate or exclude. Step 12. Utilizing the color selector tool to pick colors from my reference sheet and add them into my artwork on a new layer under my line art, I fill in my character. I also choose a darker shade for the background to make my lighter tinted character stand out. The tone is then added by accessing Layer Property, Effect, Tone. Step 13. We're finally getting to the fun part. Start highlighting as needed, taking into account the light source direction and the highest points on your character and their hair. Notice that even highlights have a tone applied to them to best achieve that traditional manga appearance. To form gradients in your tone, simply take a soft eraser tool and erase where wanted to get the desired effect. This gives you easy control over the gradients. Other methods, of course, of tone creation gradients include using the Gradient G tool or soft brushes. I add shade underneath the hair highlights to give a sense of depth. Now, I select my base color layer and go to Layer Property, Effect, Border Effect to create a white border around my character. This will help their black line art to stand out even against the dark background. Step 14. I use the Gradient G tool on my background and, with a light value, make a sweep from the right side of my canvas where the light source is coming from. This helps to further visualize lighting effects. Our character artwork is finally complete. Binarization. The Binarization ClipStudio effect turns any image into black and white. This function is great for artwork or photography studies, creating silhouettes, extracting textures, and making patterns. The extreme simplification of the image also lets you better review the composition. There's two methods of access for binarization. One being Edit Tone Corrections Binarization, which processes the effect on your selected layer only in a somewhat permanent state. The other is Layer, New Correction Layer, Binarization, which makes a new layer above everything that is adjustable and turns all layers below it into the binarization effect. Threshold adjusts the ratio of black to white, with the higher threshold yielding more black. Monochrome Material. ClipStudio also offers a wide variety of monochrome material for you to use in your works. While many of them are pre-downloaded into your software, some require internet access to newly download from the cloud. They're all free, which makes it fantastic. These materials are very useful for your productions and can just as easily be used for colored works as they can for monochrome. When applied with the prior mentioned techniques such as blending modes and tones, they make for a powerful addition to any creator's toolset. Thanks so much for watching, everyone! This guide is tailored more towards beginners, but there's hopefully some information which can be useful to all skill levels. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Bye!